And good evening, sports fans, and welcome to the Prep Sports Report Thursday Night Live. We do this every Thursday night. It's usually the coach, the columnist, Stephen Allen Weeks, and tonight's guest is the sports reporter, Travis Jordan. Stephen Weeks, a little overwhelmed at work, so he couldn't make it on tonight. So it's just going to be the coach and the kid sports reporter. So, Travis, thanks for doing this. And remember, it's all part of the Carl Demasi Sports Report Facebook pages, YouTube page, you name it, Twitter pages. I'm all over there. It's just to get more news out about our local sports and our local kids. How's it going, Travis?
Hey, Carl, it's going well. I'm honored to be a part of the brand tonight. I guess lucky for the folks that it's just me and you, not Weeks.
Yeah, but the columnist has a plethora of knowledge about local sports, high school sports, college sports, and once again, it's always fun with Stephen Weeks because he just adds so much to the questions and the guests and everything else. But anyway, it's me and you. We've known each other for a while now, and before we get into high school sports and what we want to talk about. All right, tell us about this. What is it? The Hot Grits podcast?
Yeah. So, my buddy Spencer Maddox and I have been doing basically just a free-form sports podcast. And would you believe it, Carl? We started it the first week in March, exactly 1 week before all sports shut down. So we picked the worst time in history, literally the worst time in history to start a sports podcast. Luckily, we've gotten through 18 episodes somehow. We've had, a few guests on. We've had Barry Aldridge from the Savannah Bananas, Malik Ben-Levy, the former Jenkins basketball star, a few other people too. And, basically for us, it's just, an outlet, a way to talk about the things and honestly document the things that we talk about anyway between me and my best friend. So it's called Hot Grits Podcast, and you can find it on, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast.
Yeah, I know. I listened to a couple of them, and they're really informative. So yes, you started it at the worst time. I relaunched the new Prep Sports Report during a time when there was no high school sports. But I'm telling you right now, people love information. People want to talk about sports, and it's going to be there no matter what, if there's no sports or not. I was told that there's no sports in Savannah to talk during the coronavirus. I could talk every day about any sport in Savannah, any sport that's national. I mean, we got so much news here through colleges, through high schools, through, the youth sports, Savannah Junior Golf. We got the volleyball. So there's so much we could talk about. I just can't believe that people say there's nothing to talk about. And you know what? It helps people get away from being bored, stuck in the house, or listening to the same stuff, or watching the same 1986 New York Mets World Series games.
You had to bring up 1986 New York Mets, didn't you? As a Red Sox fan.
I did not even think of that. That was not a pun or a jab at you, buddy. So you could just come back and say, what was it, 2004, where the Yankees blew it too, right?
Yeah, I believe it was 04, 07, and one pretty recently in 2018, I think.
I'm talking about where they were up 3-1 on the Red Sox. That's the one that killed me the most.
Yeah.
But you know what? God rest her soul. My mother-in-law, just like you, but she's from Boston. She got to see the Red Sox win at least 3 world championships, so I'm happy for her. And I'm a baseball fanatic. I wanted the Yankees win, but to see the Red Sox win, get the jinx of the Bambino off their back, it was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it's like what you were saying a few seconds ago, Carl, about there not being sports to talk about. As soon as there's no sports to talk about, that's when we'll stop talking about sports. So, and that's what we always say on our podcast is like, until sports stops providing us with things we disagree with, things we agree with, and things that are somewhere in the middle, then that's when we'll stop. But until then, there's plenty that I could think of to talk about, especially in the state of Georgia recently.
Right. All right, let's go to what we're all about here, the Prep Sports Report. Georgia High School State Association Rules Committee had a big meeting, and we're going to get a 30-second clock in high school basketball, boys and girls. I'll give you my opinion when you give me yours. You're a guy that grew up in Savannah, Georgia. There's never been a 30-second clock. There's been teams that lived off the Dean Smith, 4 corners, spread offense. Tim Jordan doesn't like this, but he's going to learn how to coach with it. He says he's going to learn how to coach it. He says he's done every year, but I want to see him stay around and coach with a shot clock.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really anxious and excited to see how this thing turns out, the shot clock. Carl, the most surprising thing to me was, and I think the most telling thing to me was it was a 53-10 tally in favor of the shot clock.
Mm-hmm.
But, it is a little bittersweet for me because I think in Georgia high school basketball and in high school basketball in general, there are things easier, cheaper, and more pressing that need to be fixed or at least addressed. But the shot clock proposal passed by 43 votes. That's amazing to me because I've seen how difficult it is for some things that you would think are obvious to get passed in Thomaston. But that was relatively easy, it seemed like. And I think pretty much universally people agree it's better for the kids. It is especially better for the kids that may be able to play at that next level. When you're playing a 30-second shot clock, obviously everything changes, Carl, but right when this was announced, I did think of people like Tim Jordan at Savannah High, but I don't have any doubts that he'll be able to adapt. It seems every year he gets in his little jabs about the transfers and how he doesn't partake in that. And he'll win with what he's got. And I'm sure he'll take this in a similar stride. But I do wonder about all the other things, Carl. Are you going to have another referee now that is a part of the crew that will have the ability to make mistakes with the shot clock? Are you going to have teams that play half their games for the first year and a half of this thing with a shot clock, and then the other half without a shot clock? There are things that and not to mention the price of these shot clocks. During a time where there might not be attendance at these games, so you're losing revenue and then adding, expenses. That's not a great formula there. So, but I mean, I think at its base, the shot clock coming to high school basketball is best for everyone. But I don't think it's going to be as easy as just simply it's passed and now it's here to stay. There will be growing pains, I think.
Well, I'm going to, I've been doing this for a long time. I've told you I've done this for almost 38 years. My first head coaching job was in New York, of course, girls basketball. And back then, just girls basketball in New York had a shot clock. New York put the shot clock in for the girls because the girls were playing games where the scores were 6-2 or 22-18 because girls weren't shooting the ball and the coaches weren't having the girls move without the ball. So it was needed. All right. And I learned how to coach in it. I mean, I tried to use the 4 corners with a 30-second clock. It's pretty tough to do. But what it forces is the teams that aren't on the same level as the good teams, now you have to play basketball. You can't hold the ball away from the better team. But and I know it, the better teams such as Savannah High used that tactic when they got up and they knew it was a lock if they held on to the ball that the other team was never going to come back. So it's going to be a lot of strategy. It's going to be, of course, it's going to improve, hopefully, the game as it should be played man-to-man. But I do love zones, okay? Don't get me wrong. That helps the weaker teams. It helps you in situations when you're in foul trouble. So it's going to be pretty interesting how people are going to do it. Yes, I agree with you. One is, how are we going to implement it? Like you said, half the schools are going to play with it in tournaments, half the schools not. How are the coaches going to get used to it who have never coached with a 30-second clock? But overall, it's better for the college or the high school player that has a chance to play at the next level because when you get to college, you got to learn how to play with a shot clock, and it's pretty tough.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, one of the main questions I have, Carl, and maybe you can answer this, I don't know how it was in New York when the 30-second shot clock, when the offensive team shoots, if they rebound the ball, does it reset all the way back to 30? It
resets.
Okay.
If you get an offensive rebound, which you should be penalized, the defense should be penalized if they let the offensive team get the rebound, it gets reset. Now, we had adults working the clocks. We didn't have an officials. We had an adult. Nobody under the age of, back then, of course, it was 18, but now it's 21, had to be a responsible adult that understood if the ball hit the rim, the shot clock would reset when the other team gains possession. If the offensive team gains possession, it starts all over again.
Yeah. So I think, but that in and of itself, that actual act, when you think about resetting the clock, there that allows for a lot of potential mistakes. Now, I don't doubt that we will eventually figure it out, but I think it's safe to say that people weren't exactly, thrilled with the rate of refereeing of late. This is going to add even more on their plate, and it's really another reason why I think that instead of you know cutting away from referees and saying that we need to change it somehow, you need to be investing more in the referees and training them better. Now you're going to have another thing that you're going to have to put on their shoulders. It'll be interesting, but man, could you imagine just I would just love to see high school basketball right now.
Oh yeah,
With or without a shot clock. Like I just want to see
I agree with you.
basketball or anything.
And to go to referees, and I know I'm going to shock some of the referees that have refereed my games. I mean, they try. They really do try. What gets with
Yeah.
me with referees is when they put on the striped shirt and they think they know the rules better than you do. And when they won't talk to you about the rules, that's what gets me. I give those guys a lot of credit. We're going to lose some very good officials lately because they're getting up in age, and there's not enough young, energetic males or females that are coming in to referee these games. And if you don't have a referee, you got a problem. And
Well, we're not giving them much incentive to get into the. I mean,
right.
who on earth would want to do, what the GHSA refs are tasked with doing? And I think especially in basketball more than baseball and football, the rules across the state may be the same, but anyone who has seen basketball in the state of Georgia knows that a game in Atlanta is refereed not better or worse, but different than a game in Savannah. When it comes time to play in the state playoffs, and perhaps this is why Beach and Johnson girls are always, in the finals, it's because they can play to any brand of basketball. But the fact is that Savannah basketball is refereed a little differently than Macon, which is refereed a little differently than Atlanta. And that's a problem. We got to be a little more consistent. I mean, a lot of people can see that some hand fouls go uncalled here, and it's not right or wrong, you see what I mean? But it's just, you cannot expect the kids to adapt to something like that in the state playoffs. I always think about, adapting in the state playoffs. Sometimes they have to adapt to 11-foot rims in the state championships of games.
Or what was it? What was it like? 20.3 or 20.9 inches 3-point lines.
Yeah, so, it was a group. It was a large group of really scientific people measuring it, Hoosier style.
I mean, it's tough. It's tough. So, but like you said, we're ready for it. In track and field now and cross country, believe it or not, cross country now is going away from the areas when you get to the state cross country meet or tournament or match, whatever you want to call it. Now they're going to go to regions, which I think is a lot better off. I mean, I don't know why we have regions when we run during the year and then we go to an area and then we go to a sectional and then we go to the championships. Hey, your region qualifies, go to the state championships. That's the way it should be. I thought that was a great rule change also.
Now, is that moving toward like it's going to be more like volleyball, the way volleyball is structured, or
the way volleyball is structured is areas, just like cross country was. So cross country is getting away from it. I don't know why volleyball doesn't have regions. I know, down here in the southern part of the state, we don't have enough teams, and geography plays a big role. But there's got to be something done. And once again, my philosophy has always been, hey, you got teams in your area, you set up conferences, and then after you play your conference games, break it down by classification, and then go to the state playoffs. So you don't have to travel. Like, we don't have to travel to Macon or to Augusta to Waycross to play a game. But until they start making those decisions, there has to come some thought into students first. And, travel time plays a big role in it, which also prepares them for college because a lot of college teams travel. So you got the other side of the coin. So also track and field has announced that only one relay team from each school in the state championships can run in that event. You can't have 2, 3, or 4 anymore. So you're allowed to have 8 runners. You're just going to have to pick your best runners to be on that one team.
I mean, I don't really have like a strong take on that, but I will say this. It's things like that make me believe that there's specific teams, specific players, specific years that leads that led to that change. I
You
think,
know, one is you had more participants. Okay. Two
which I
is
thought was the goal, right?
right, but two
Yeah.
right. But when you go to a track meet and it lasts 10 hours, you gotta cut somewhere. You gotta cut somewhere.
As someone who's written on deadline, believe me, I'm all for all the clocks running, no penalties, no fouls, keep the clock running. I'm all for that.
What I'm excited about, they're adding a little more relay teams events that are for speed, like the 4x800 and the 4x200. I mean, you're going to see some quick kids making those relay teams, so that'll be exciting too. That will go into effect in 2022, just like the shot clock. All right, you're watching the Thursday Night Live, the Prep Sports Report, right on the Facebook Live. It's the coach, Carl Damasi, and the sports reporter, Travis Jadon. The columnist, Stephen Elmore Weeks, was swamped at work. He couldn't get here or on in time. So once again, the guy's a busy man. I mean, he's got kids playing golf. He's got kids swimming. He's got kids going everywhere. So, he's got a lot going on. He's got a family life, and it just keeps him busy. But I miss Stephen Elmore Weeks doing this every Thursday night. All right, Prep Sports Report. You've written some great stories about local kids that are playing at the next level. Winston Wright, give me some more names.
Tyrone Scott, Demetrius Robertson, Landon Jones, the volleyball player at Georgia Southern.
Yep.
Let's see. Braden Sorge, baseball player at Country Day. There's a lot.
Leary at Stetson.
Jalen Leary at Stetson, who just tore up that league last year. Was the player of the year as a freshman.
Yeah. He came to play. My question is to you now. We're talking about football stories that you've written. We'll talk about the upcoming ones that I'm excited about. But how about Demetrius Robinson? You think we're going to see him break out like way back in his freshman year at California, where he was unbelievable?
Well, if Georgia gets anything close to what D-Rod did his freshman year at California, I mean, I think they'd be A-okay with that. But I mean, I don't know that a lot of people, and I don't want to pretend like I'm reading up on the Georgia Bulldogs every day, but I follow them. And I think for me, the first thing I think of is the offense as a whole with a new quarterback, a new coordinator, just a team that barely scored against Kentucky last year. It was in a downfall, but there were real problems, I think, philosophically at Georgia offensively. And I don't know that the recipe for that is to change everything. You know what I mean? That doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
Right.
So I'm, anxious, and I wouldn't even say really cautiously optimistic, but I know there are guys like Robertson who just have raw ability that can make plays. It's a matter of Georgia finding a way to get them the ball. It seems like they always have somebody on offense, even when they win, that the fans and the media, and usually rightfully so, are wondering, where was he? There were times that Georgia went away from Sony Michel, if you could even believe that. There are times that Georgia went away from DeAndre Swift last year, and it might have cost them then. And then they find themselves trying to force it back to that person. So I don't know, what the plan is, but I believe Robertson is going to have every opportunity, finally, in Athens to make good in his last season. And I really am rooting for him, Carl, for a guy that, it's not like he was overshadowed or anything. I mean, he was, in the limelight basically from his freshman season in high school on, but he's gone through some things that, bad luck, bad timing, right. Big moves as a young kid. And for him, I just hope he gets 12 to 13 games where he can play and have an opportunity to make an impact. And I think Georgia's going to try to do that.
And I'm like you. I mean, of course, I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I could tell you more about Georgia football than I could tell you about Notre Dame, because I live here now and I follow Georgia so closely.
Might have something to do with 1980.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're getting me back for 1986. Yeah. Okay. I didn't even think of that one. Okay. Yes. I was heartbroken that night that Herschel Walker just ran all over Notre Dame. But anyway, let's go back. Let's go back to it. Running the football. That's been Georgia football's motif forever. Until they learn how to equalize the run and pass 50-50, 60-40, it's never going to – Robinson might never have a chance. And that's the problem. They don't throw the ball much. They believe in their offensive linemen, which usually is one of the best in the nation. Has it got them a national championship since 1980? No. But they want to run the ball. And they don't look to the wideouts. Okay? When they get in trouble and they get behind, then they're looking for the wideouts. Well, you know what? Now we know you're throwing the ball. You're not going to be able, your wideouts aren't going to be able to get open. So until they start having that ratio 60-40, 55-45, or 50-50, hey, I'm going to sit back and just put 9 people in a box and see whenever you're going to want to throw the ball. And I mean, that's the way I was coached football. If you're going to put people up in the line of scrimmage, I'm going to throw the ball. And I know I might have a better running game than my passing game. Hey, right. But you got to soften it up.
Right. And I think that, that can happen a lot of times, not just to Georgia, but if you're a team that, you look up and you see 7, 8, 9 in the box, and you have 4 stars and 5 stars out wide, and both of your tackles are top 150 recruits. You have a 5-star quarterback, and I'm not speaking of Georgia when I say all these things, but I think of a team like Clemson. Clemson is the definition of balance, and they don't run the ball half the time, right? But they have this ability since Dabo Swinney's been there to hit in a multitude of ways. And what they do, and Alabama does this really well too, they get first downs before third down.
Right.
They don't find themselves in a lot of
third and short, third and long, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Georgia, sometimes it seems like, weirdly enough, they pride themselves on 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2. Why on earth would you want to do that? I don't understand. So sometimes I get why they do get lured into the passing game. And it's not easy to run against all these SEC defenses.
Right. We love the Woody Hayes philosophy, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. My philosophy was, if I'm running the ball, I want 4 yards in a cloud of dust. So when it comes to 3rd and 2, I got a better shot at it. So, but anyway,
I just want a bunch of points. I just want a lot of points, and I could care less how I get them.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. So it comes down to points. But all right, so we're coming up to hopefully high school football season. Next week is the dead week where nobody's allowed to do anything. The kids get their break. Oh, I forgot to tell you this, and I don't know how many people know this in the state of Georgia. Georgia High School State Association will impose a second dead week starting next year from Memorial Day, Memorial Day a week later till June 7th. And then they'll come back July 4th to whenever that falls. So we're going to get 2 dead periods starting next year in Georgia High School. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. But I mean, I think those dead periods are, I don't think a lot of people have too many big issues with them. And I don't know that, and you can speak to this, Carl, do coaches have, I think they look forward to almost the dead week, because coaches are so concerned with someone else, putting in more work or getting ahead of them or seeing a little more film. And that's what drives them. Right. And so when it's a dead week, it's kind of like, well, this is where we're allowed to not work our butts off all week.
The only problem I have, is the coaches who are not supposed to make summer workouts mandatory, but they do. It's supposed to be voluntary. It's in the Georgia Constitution. And the other problem I have with it is the consistency. You got the kids coming out, they're working out, they're getting in shape, and then you have, a week off. Okay, they're going to lose some of that conditioning that they just worked 3 or 4 weeks on. So that's how I look at it. Me, when I coached in New York for, I guess it was 82 to 95, 13 years, head coaches weren't allowed to do anything with their team during the summer except weight training. You couldn't go out and run conditioning. You couldn't go out and run plays. You couldn't do that stuff. You had to have a team captain, and we call them captain's huddles. They had to run the conditioning, the running, the conditioning, the agility drills. Coaches weren't allowed to do that. And we always got ready for a football season. They gave us 24 days to get ready for a football season. The kids were ready. But how can you get ready with lifting and getting bigger, faster, and stronger in 24 days? It's pretty tough to do. So, there's pros and cons. Everybody needs a break. The kids need a break. Coaches need a break. But there's some cons to it, though.
I mean, I do think, and I don't know that it's going in one direction or another, but I do think that a lot of coaches for any given sport depend on the other sports that their teams are playing. So I know, I played basketball and baseball. So as soon as baseball was done, and for us, when I played in high school, early May, baseball was done. So right after that, I would be, maybe a month of summer basketball. And then right after that, it was back to baseball throughout the summer and then in the fall heading into basketball season. So I was never really worn out by one sport or another. Football is a different animal completely, though. If you don't allow, and mandate dead periods, guys are not going to just take the breaks themselves. And so that's something that I think they definitely need to institute. But I mean, it might be a fool's errand to think that we're going to ever regulate it fully, where it's done the way it probably should be. A lot like transfers, probably.
It's tough. And you're watching Thursday Night Live on the Prep Sports Report Facebook page. We're here every Thursday night. It's the coach, the columnist, Stephen L. Weeks. Could not make it tonight due to a little bit of a workload. And, of course, this week's guest is the sports reporter, Travis Jardon, who's wrote some excellent articles for the Prep Sports Report. Prep Sports Report website, not the Facebook page. The website has been revamped, newer, easier to work, new content up there all the time. And I got to thank this man a lot because he's written some great stories. And he's got a couple of features that he's looking at and he's drooling at. Savannah Christian, Coach Baker Woodward, sent me a little information about Spencer Robichaud, who's going to be one of the best up-and-coming quarterbacks in the area. But there are a lot of other quarterbacks from Savannah, Georgia. They're getting a lot of big-time looks. And that's this man's detail. This is this man's little stringer right here. Go out there and let's tell the stories about the best quarterbacks we're going to see coming into the 2020 season.
Yeah, Carl. So I was thinking, like a few weeks ago, and I do this every year. I guess it's just, from writing for so many years now and covering all these different sports, I try to find, themes or outliers, whether it be, all new coaches in this region or, the two best teams in one region in basketball losing their best players. That's the way it was when you were coaching Islands, and Islands, Jenkins, Johnson lost all those players at once. So that was a theme. I looked this year, and I especially looked back at 2019, and I saw that basically all of the area's top quarterbacks, not all of them, but close to all of them, are returning in 2020. And that led me to think, well, let's start doing, 2-3 stories a week and start releasing some of these guys' stories. I think of guys like, Patrick Blake at Jenkins, who has just increased kind of like video game numbers each season. And now he's dealing with the loss of 31 seniors from a Jenkins team that was really dominant last year. The loss of his head coach, which, a lot of people credit, including Blake, credit Jason Cameron with his steps from, year one to year two after they lost Javante Middleton. I think of Holden Garner is as touted as they come at BC. I think maybe I'm a little biased. Barry Kleinpeter is probably the most overlooked quarterback in the area, let alone the city. This a guy as a sophomore, Carl, who put up insane numbers.
Oh yeah.
For a team that, as good as Country Day was last year, 10-0 in the regular season and first region title since 1980, they made nothing easy on themselves.
No, they didn't.
They were wire to wire losing to Johnson, who is better under Coach Bonner, but Country Day shouldn't have been losing to Johnson with a minute and a half left. They were losing to Johnson County both times before they won. So I talked to Barry about that already, and that story will be on Prep Sports Report soon. But there's some other guys too, at Bethesda. Windsor Forest has a new coach, Jeb Stewart, and they have some athletes. Do they look to one of those athletes to run their offense? Richmond Hill has 2 quarterbacks returning that were both pretty productive at times last year. So it's fascinating to me to see all these quarterbacks. And if you don't notice these kinds of things, and again, it reminds me of when you had Cave and Durham and all those guys at Islands. If you don't recognize it while you have it, you're gonna miss it. And so this is a time where fans in Savannah should really look around and recognize there hasn't been a crop of quarterbacks like this in a long, long time that I can remember. And in Kleinpeter's case and Garner's case, neither one of those guys is going to be leaving after next year.
No, they're back again.
Yeah, so there's a lot of firepower in these offenses, and Blake and Garner went head to head last year. I talked to these guys, about it. They look and see how the other guys do. They know they get it. They know what's going on, and Robichaux is no different. I think he's going to be counted on a lot at Savannah Christian, and he's been doing a lot of hard work. I'm good friends with the guy that's training Spencer right now, Phil Deary, and he tells me nothing but great things about Robichaux. I think Thomas Carver at Calvary is probably the only quarterback that I can think of that was really the marquee player on his team that's going to be gone next year. So it's exciting.
And he was the Rodney Dangerfield of quarterbacks because nobody gave him any love. But that kid was a true high school quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, just true grit. I mean, you take a kid that could be playing fullback or tight end and you put him at quarterback, and he knows how to read defenses, and he made things happen. I'm going to miss watching Thomas Carver, but like you said, I mean, we still got so many more coming back. It's going to be a lot of fun watching these. And, there are other schools that have quarterbacks too that could be standouts too also. So it's not just the 6 or 7 or 8 that we're talking about. There's like you said, it's been a long time coming that we've seen such a group of quarterbacks in the Savannah, Georgia area that makes it exciting.
Yeah, and like you said, Carl, this time last year, I don't think anyone, was really looking at Barry Kleinpeter to be the Region 3A East first-team quarterback, the all-Greater Savannah first-team quarterback. And so right now we're sitting here, in late June and saying, these are the 8 guys, these are the 9 guys. Chances are there's a guy that we haven't talked about and that we won't talk about that will be one of the best quarterbacks in the city. And so that's always another key story too. I can't wait for football, man.
Yeah. Well, and just to go a little step further, Kleinpeter won the Region 3A Player of the Year. The year before was Robichaux. So, it's amazing that these two kids are back in the same conference. And I've always said that conference with Christian, Calvary, and Country Day, it's a black and blue division. Then you go to the other side, you got ECI, you got Johnson County. So that's a black and blue region throughout, been like that for years and years, and it's still going to be. And now Claxton, stepping up, and I mean, they got a kid that's supposed to be big time out there too, right?
Yeah, he's a good player too. And Claxton, again, another team that had Country Day on the ropes and probably outplayed Country Day for a large portion. They're a team that kind of always reminds me of Southeast Bullock in that old Region 3A. Right. We always go to Savannah High Beach, Johnson, Jenkins, and somehow, some way, SEBs usually ended up being one of the 3 or 4 seeds, and we never really talked about it because they were on the outside. So Claxton's a lot like that too. But yeah, certainly the Country Day, Savannah Christian, Calvary trio, those 2 weeks during the season, or 3 weeks, I guess, when that's happening, that's as good as it gets.
Doesn't get any better.
Especially it was good last year.
Oh, yeah, it was excellent last year. All right, so once again, on the Prep Sports Report website, prepsportsreport.com, we will have the Prep Sports Report quarterback preview series written by the sports reporter himself, Travis Jordan. I already wrote a special on Spencer Robichaux, so if you want to check that out, if you want to tweak it and do something with it and we want to give him a little more love, you can do that too. All right, quickly, before we end the show, we got 2-minute drill here. You're like me, buddy, baseball fanatics. I'll take 60 games over nothing. I don't know about you.
Yeah, man, they can put the ball on a tee and give us one of those dial-up radios and give me a baseball that way. I'll take baseball any way I can get it. But all these announcements, Carl, and they finally it's almost as if baseball expected us to give them a plaque or a parking spot because they finally figured out their little argument. Now there's this whole business of maybe the worldwide pandemic that we're going to be dealing with. And so they're heading right into, the teeth of it, so to speak. July 1st, all these players are coming back from out of the country on these special charter flights. They're going to have 60-man rosters, universal DH. They're going to have a man starting on second base in extra innings.
Like the minor leagues.
Right. And again, talk about a reporter's dream. We don't want to see those 18 innings. We don't want to see those 18-inning games. But I do think that baseball is going to look a lot different. I think fans will like it more than they think, though, especially National League guys. I'm really happy about the DH.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting now. Everybody's going to be a hitter in the lineup, and it's going to be a lot of strategy, extra innings, putting that guy on second base, trying to move him over to win the game by a run. So we're not watching 18, 19, 20, 24 innings. I can remember back in my my youth day. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, 24 innings. So, yep. So, all right. So once again, give a plug out to your podcast. When do you release it? Every night, every other day? How does it work?
Yeah, so at least once a week. It's Hot Grits Podcast. You can find it on Apple, Spotify. We have our Twitter account at Podcast Grits. So that's myself and Spencer Maddox do that at least once a week. We try to do it, 2 episodes every 10 days or so. So look out for that. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Jadon Sports. Carl, I can't believe it's been 35 minutes.
Yep.
Talking about sports.
We can go for another hour, but I try to limit to 30 minutes, but we can go another hour. We had a lot to talk about, and it was a lot of fun. And once again, Travis Jadon is writing for the Prep Sports Report, the website, prepsportsreport.com. Great stories. He's coming up with the Prep Sports Report quarterback preview series. It's going to be a lot of fun. Who he matches up and who he talks about, and it'll be coming out twice a week up until the end of July, and then we're going to get into little football breakdowns with the local teams. So, Travis, I appreciate all you're doing. Hey, keep it going. Keep that podcast going, and somebody's going to listen because everybody wants to listen about sports. So you'll be fine with it.
Yeah, as long as they're listening, that's what I'm about.
That's what it's all about. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl.
I'll talk to you.
See ya.
Always a lot of fun, but I'm going Yankees Dodgers. He hung up too quick. But anyway, once again, Stephen Elmo Weeks, who's the columnist who has helped me brought back the Prep Sports Report, revamped the website. Great job. Saber Solutions. He does a great job. He's also a journalist at heart because he used to write for the Savannah Morning News. He went to school to be a journalist, but he's got his own little company now. It's working a lot of fields dealing with social media journalism and all that other stuff. But Stephen Elmo Weeks, and it's every Thursday night right here at 7 p.m. It's the Prep Sports Report Facebook Thursday Night Live. Okay, with the coach, Carl DeMasi, and of course the columnist Stephen Elmo Weeks, and we'll try and bring on a guest every week. And I got to thank Travis Jadon, young rider, loves what he's doing, loves talking sports, and he'll tell you how he sees it, which is something special about that young man. So once again, Travis, thank you for coming on. This is the coach, Carl DeMasi, and for the columnist, Stephen Elmo Weeks. Enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully it's been your best week ever. Remember, the coach and the AD on the sister Facebook page, the Carl DeMasi Sports Report, will be back here on the internet Saturday morning with the coach and AD from the Soundgarden on the Coach's Corner Sports Network. We got a great lineup. Check it. I'll be throwing out the social media stuff tomorrow. And once again, thanks for listening to us. Talk to you soon. And once again, it's all sports, all local, all the time.